Make sure I'm nice and square with it. So you could probably do this with any kind of logo. This is a piece of it's plastic and it's on the boat here. But there's also, if you follow me, there's also things like this. This is an Emblem motor and there's a plastic thing. You could probably do a similar idea here. Reproduce that as well. There's a few other logos inside the boat that I like to do. These are from like the 60s and 70s, so these were all done by hand. These fonts aren't found because this was a custom logo. You can see kind of, it's for a boat, so it has a wave feature. And these are kind of like it's on the water with the waves and things like that. So it's not a font, it's actually an artist who created or a designer. So this is one way to reproduce it. Okay, so I brought the photo from my phone into Photoshop. So there's just a couple things you're going to want to notice when you're looking at the photo here and what your final product is going to be. Because this logo, it has like a bevel, like it comes from here and then it bevels out to the outside. A lot of people, when they're 3D printing, they just kind of do the outline and then they just extrude it straight up. And that's that. And there's a reason for that, because doing this bevel thing is not that easy when you're just working with kind of vectors that you're kind of grabbing at random. So Fusion 360 is very, very sensitive with the vector images. So there's a couple ways of doing this. You could take this, I have it in Photoshop now, but you could put it directly into Illustrator and start working with the pen tool, making your lines. And, stretching them, make sure they're on the image. Now, I'm doing it on the silver because this is the front and it's the best area. You could do it this way, but that's not the way I did it. I know that the silver part is the one I want to keep, even though it's a problem if I bring it into Fusion 360, because if I start to bevel, it's going to bevel from the silver part. But the silver part is the more accurate part, because if I'm looking straight on this photograph, this line, black line here, is nice and even. That's the distance it is around this part. If I look over here, it's not. It's hidden here and it's thick here and stuff like that, just from the view of the camera. So I'm looking at this thickness of this line here. So what I did was I removed everything in Photoshop here. Like, oops, here, let's just make a copy of this. Hide the background and just started, deleting this. This is faster for me than trying to do a vector thing. And I even removed all the black just so I kept the silver. And once I had just the silver left over on the outside there, you can be pretty accurate or inaccurate, however you want to do it. Once I had that, I just made sure to do a color overlay in black. So basically end up with that. And then I saved that as a PNG file. And of course, you want it cleaned up a bit better than that. You want to remove all the black you can from here, and then do that. Anyway, it goes pretty quick with the quick selection tool, hence its name. And you might have to, there's a problem here. You could either, your logo is probably not, you could paint this up but it's actually the quick selection tool didn't do too bad. Sometimes it'll jump into there and grab that, but it's not too bad. So yeah, once you cover it over with a color overlay, then you can export that as a PNG and then bring it into Illustrator. So this is basically kind of what I have here. It's not perfect. You can even see ghost lines here and stuff like that. But the next step is to do image trace on it. Let's do default. It's a big photo, so actually you can probably make it smaller. And you'll see that it has all the waves and things like that. You basically, there's a couple things you can do. You can start by defining it a little bit more with the, less noise, like fewer corners, so it's a little straighter here, or fewer paths. The paths are the little dots, because you're really going to want as few as possible when you bring it into Fusion 360. If there's too many points, it's not going to work very well. But you also don't want to lose your detail. You don't want these things to become too rounded. Actually, it became even sharper. That's good. The lower it is, the sharper it is for some reason. Just play around with these till you get this fairly, no, that's not good. That's picking up all my other lines. And if I go too low, yeah, that's actually, anyway, I'll leave it where it was. It's roughly in the middle there. So that's fine. So that's good for me. Here. So let's just, I'm going to select it so I can see the, here, expand. There we go. There's I forgot to do expand. Now we can see the pixel or the points clusters. So I'm just going to go into the object here, path, just make sure it's cleaned up, make sure all the lines are touching each other. And then I want to reduce the number of as few as possible. So there's something called simplify. And you'll see all these dots here. It'll actually count how many there are. 100. There's 417 original ones, and then if you do auto simplify, it's going to bring it down to 172, which is good. And if you're still want to make it simpler, you can bring it down a bit more. Just be careful of certain areas. I noticed this R was a problem area, so I'm going to bring it down a bit more. As soon as I see this R changing to weird shape, starting to, we're at 124. And these start to round off if you're not careful. Like I'll bring it down to like whatever, and you'll see this kind of turn into a blob, and these kind of rounded off. But we're at 101, so I'm just going to put it back to 174 because we can actually do this a couple times. I'll just do okay, because we want, that's still too many points for Fusion 360 to understand. You really just want, because it's going to have a hard time beveling in between here. So this is just our first step anyway. So, okay, now this, you remember, because we want to bevel this in, and if we start beveling in Fusion 360 from here, it's not going to work. So we're going to want to apply the stroke effect. Oh, what did I do wrong? There we go. Is that right? I've done something wrong here. See, I'm just going to make a copy of this and bring it into a new thing, and actually I'll probably make it a little bit smaller too, since it was kind of, you didn't like the size of it. Just fit it on our canvas here, our artboard. All right, so now I can do the stroke. So I just make it in red, and we're going to refer back to our original here. Oops. And just take a look at how thick this is. Actually, this is dead on here, so just, oops. I don't mean to, but just the thickness of this, and we're going to reproduce it in our drawing here. Also, if we click on stroke, we can get the, what's going on here. We want it on the, see, it's kind of doing a outline here. We want the path to be on the outside of our lettering like this. So that looks a little too thick there, or maybe it's right. A little too thick. So bring this down. So I guess 3 points going to work well for that. That's pretty close. Let's see what 2 is. Yeah, 3 is good, close enough. And then you want to take this and we want to move this our line to the outside, and that there's a thing that called expand appearance. We're going to expand it out, and it shows all 3 where it's going to expand to. I think the default's this one or this one, but we want to expand it out to the outside. So that brings it right out to the outside. So now we have everything we want, and we can see how many pixels are here, and you can actually, now we can do another, this is where we're going to want to do another simplify, and we're going to want to watch our lettering here. See, that's kind of rounding off. That's a bit better. And there's went from 193 to 57. Okay, and you always can come back in here and fix this, like we almost like we're going to do at the beginning here, like with this, like, and you're going to have to, because even with this, like 50 points or whatever, Autodesk Fusion's not going to like it 100%. Till it really wants just a sweeping curves with everything. That's why a lot of people just do it directly in Fusion 360, like they bring the photo in and then they do it. You can see here's the finished one, but let's go back to here first. I'm going to just save this. Well, me, I hardly save anything. Or I save everything or don't save it. I save all the wrong things. I'm going to actually export it as not an SVG. That's a possibility, and it will go into Fusion 360, but since we have the option here to use AutoCAD, which is part of the made by Fusion 360, is the same company, so we're going to use this. I've exported as AutoCAD, like from this point, and SVG didn't work, but AutoCAD DXF would. I know that Fusion 360 doesn't like SVGs to expand them and do all very much. So it's, if you can, save it as your AutoCAD file. Let's save it as Monroe. Yeah, I'll replace it, sure. And also make sure this is checked. Export selected art only. If it's unchecked, it's going to export the artboard and everything, and Fusion 360 is not going to understand what's going on. So just the selected artwork, and we're going to go to Fusion 360 here, and we're going to do a new design. We're going to insert our DXF, go find it, open it, select the plane we want to set it on, and we're going to see how big it is when it comes in here. It's probably huge. Yeah. Okay. So just move it over, move it up before we place it in, do OK. All right, so this is where most tutorials sort of end. They go, okay, now you got your thing in here, and we'll just extrude it. I don't know, that might be too much. 10 millimeters. Looks like it's roughly 3 times the size of what the real is, and then they're done. So then they print this off on your printer, but we want that nice bevel. So you can click on here, modify, and chamfer. So the original is not a 45-degree angle off the, this is just a slightly sloped thing. It's barely coming off here on an angle, so it's more like a 20-degree angle, not 45-degree angle from the edges. So that kind of helps us a bit, because if we go with the 45, so it's 10, so if I do 5 millimeter to start with, you're going to see it. There's a problem here. Error. There's one error, and it actually shows you the error if you click on tangent chain here. If you don't have that clicked on, it's going to say error, but you're not going to know where. So there's something there that doesn't like. which is fine because we're going to try two distances. We're going to just try this for fun. Oh, there's another place it doesn't like. So you're going to have to go kind of, what I did is I went back and forth in Illustrator, and I kind of fixed the areas it didn't like here. Like, you know, you can go and move these things around till it's something it likes, you know. You can remove some, like there's some of them you probably don't need that many. Like there's place you'll figure it out fairly quickly where it doesn't like things. And either by just readjusting manually yourself, it might take a couple times, or doing the auto simplify a bit more till it's, you know, fairly reasonable. And you will get something that Fusion 360 likes. Now, if you're really having a hard time, you're gonna have to just come back here and go and create all the lines off a photo in here and do it. But I found that just going back and forth a couple times, because you can kind of tell, it tells you like it's not going to be able to chamfer very well in this area or certain areas and things like that. Maybe in this corner, and just moving things around a bit more will help with that. And fewer points is what it basically needs. You can kind of see what's going on here, but eventually it will like it, and that's what we got here. Basically, if we start at the beginning here, is the same thing as what we have here, except it probably has fewer points just by a little bit. Yeah, it even looks a little rounder than here. So I probably went down quite a bit. I can't tell how many, maybe this says 50 and maybe it went down to 40 or something like that, of these points. So, but the next thing is the chamfer. And if we edit this, it still actually didn't like it after all this. But because I knew it was going to be just a slight bevel, I did the two distances, and you can see here that like if I bring it up to 20, it does give me an error. But if you do the two distances, sometimes it kind of brought it over and fixed it a little bit there, because I'm actually happy with that. So you got to be a little patient going back and forth, or just do it properly by coming in and doing all these vectors yourself over top of an image that you have. But either way works. Like, you got to find your own way. I kind of like this Photoshop method of coming in, and it was actually very quick, which I liked, and I could understand what was going on by expanding and things like that in Illustrator. Because going straight into here, you're not going to get that. Like, you're going to get you can't just do the silver part, because there's no expanding out. And if you try to go the black edge on the outside of the photo, it's not, you'd really have to like just go outside of the silver area of this image here. You'd really have to go on the outside of this image. But then when you come to here, like, what do? You'd have to decide, I guess mathematically speaking or optically speaking, this is twice as thick. Like, this is even, but this is twice as thick as the one side that's nothing. Like, I don't know, you have to measure that. There's probably some optics going on here that's going to figure this out, but if you went straight into Fusion 360 with the drawing tool, you'd have to like decide what you're going to do with that before you do the bevel. Anyway, so once we got this, I just had to do the holes that were on here, like these for the rivets, or not. It's up to you, but I did because, I don't know, it's more authentic. This one looks like they just drilled it through the front. It's not indented, so I think this one, I know for a fact because this is my grandfather's business, and he's made thousands of these boats from 1937 on. So that when they didn't rivet this, there's like, I've seen boats going down the highway and there's always this part's broken off because of that not being a rivet there, or it breaks here and the U is missing. Anyway, it's kind of funny. Actually, I just remembered this was in an opening scene of Men with Brooms with Leslie Nielsen. They have a Monroe boat, and you can see that it's actually broken the logo there on the back. That's why I'm kind of making this, because I know mine's gonna break here, and then this it's not glued on, it's just riveted on. So this is kind of like loose. So if it breaks there or snaps there, because it's just plastic that's 50 years old, it's the U is gonna go. So I could be preactive, but it's riveted on. I'm not going to try to fill around with this till it actually breaks when I'm out boating. So that's just one sort of thing. If you're thinking about designs, like if you're making this to go on something, that there are things that this could go missing at some point on somebody's vehicle or boat or whatever. And that over here was the fix, was just to like rivet straight through, probably drill a tiny hole and go through. So it's kind of fun to see how the thought processes from something from 1969. All right. So, and we take from here and we just go to our STL. And we bring it over to Cura. It's actually, this is the print utility. It says open, send it to, which I'm going to do. This is my computer. I can hear the graphics card spinning up. It's like, it doesn't like that. Actually, I have it already in here, the other one that I printed. So it's a little bit big. So we're going to size it down. I know that it's 214 is the exact size. And then we'll just right click and center it. And because it's just barely the size of the print bed, I just spun it around on an angle so it would fit better. And that was that. I have a Lego setting that's pretty high quality. Actually, it's the default is 1 millimeter layer height. But I changed it to 0.15. And I also did the enable ironing. It kind of half works ironing. It helps a little bit. I'll probably just sand the top of this a little bit before I paint it silver anyway. So I don't know how much ironing's going to help. And you can see, actually there's 2 on there now. I should have took one off. Oh well, not going to matter, I guess. Yes, it does matter. 6 hours. Here, delete one. So 2 hours, 3 hours to do that. So yeah. And then of course, if I turn this down to 2, it's going to take 2 hours, because at 1 it was 4 hours. So depends on what resolution you want to print these off at, but even 2 is fine. It looks pretty good. So I'll show you the finished product. So here we have the finished piece, the 3D printed one. So if I bring it down here to compare, there's the original and there's the copy. So if we just put on top, you can see it's an exact match. It's the exact same size and style. So it's pretty neat, eh? So that's a way to reproduce these, and it pretty much probably has the same feel as this piece of plastic here. This is a little bit thicker, so the next one I can make a little bit thinner. It's about 1 millimeter too thick. So this is like 4 millimeters, and this is probably like 3. But you can see. And of course I have to paint it still too, to make it silver. So that's a way of reproducing logos off of different objects. I couldn't find any silver ink. I have gold here, but more looks like mustard. It's just acrylic ink. I just rolled it out. Actually, it looks gold when it's in the sun, but I don't know, when it's just not kind of flat on a surface. It doesn't look so hot. Anyway, so basically just kind of roll it over the top here. Maybe I'll let one layer dry and then try another layer. But you know, I can see that it works. So you can kind of see that it works quite well with that. If it looks sort of dead on, you have the nice black outline on there. Around the text, and it's pretty much the same as, well, you really have to be hard pressed to see the difference. I know it's 3D printed, but someone else may not notice that it's a 3D print. Anybody who's ever 3D printed once in their life will know that it's a 3D print, but people who don't know about it just assume it's what it is. So we know better, don't we? So there you go. I might try to find a nice silver paint, maybe an oil-based paint as opposed to the acrylic. Will show up better. I don't think spray paint's going to work because you're not going to be able to keep it on the surface there. You need something you're able to roll out onto there. So, anyway, that's that.